to talk about another controversial topic, silver fillings.
You did a great job. Start brushing now. At what point should I be concerned? At what level is it, more than we're supposed to have?
Anything over 0 is toxic. So we're at 61.
Oh my goodness, 61?
61 micrograms.
He did a great job on the show. Yeah, really, when he gets bored, when Dave gets bored of this kid, he's gonna host his own talk show. But I first saw this demonstration, and it did blow my mind, at the Radio City Music Hall event. And Dave and Dr. Wentz did this wonderful, very comedic routine. It was fabulous. But in the middle of all this humor, they were able to tell something very poignant to me about how we get mercury into our body just by brushing mercury fillings. How many of you have silver fillings? These mercury amalgam fillings? Most of the audience. I do. It's very common. And so we started doing our homework on this. When I was out visiting, I had this conversation with Dave. I asked Dave, would you be brave enough, willing to come on the show and just do this demonstration live? Let's just see what happens. And you did it, and you revealed that there's a lot of gassing, off-gassing. When you brush your teeth, these gases go into your mouth. So we've had a long-standing debate with several organizations about whether these silver fillings, these mercury amalgam fillings are safe. Half the dentists that I've spoken to don't use them anymore. They argue there's no reason to use them. I look forward to a day when all the dentists will come together and say, if we're not 100% sure something's safe, why take a chance? And the major societies will get them behind them at that point as well. But in the meantime, if you're going to have a filling in your mouth, we vote with our pocketbooks every time we do things. I think you should push your dentist and say, do I have to get a mercury amalgam? Why can't I just get a different filling? Because you should know that, as I mentioned, half the dentists don't ever use the other kinds of fillings. So you should always be able to be managed in a different way if you care about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show. I was so happy that glove box was there so that my knees, you couldn't see them shaking. That was terrifying, but he makes you at ease and does a fantastic job. We've attended his show a number of times. A lot of fun. I highly recommend it if you're in New York. Get in to see his show. It is amazing to be there. All right, let's take a few more questions.
Hi, Dr. Oz. It's May, and there's our friends from the Philippines. Just one question. In the Philippines, it is so humid. The climate is so humid. We came here in US and we noticed our skin is so dry. What can we do to make it moistured and at the same time healthy? Because you would like to always go back in the International Convention of Youth.
Hey Dr. Oz, I'm Roberta. My question for you is, how do you help children improve their skin? If they have skin conditions, what can we do as parents to help improve it? Thank you.
Now you'll notice these are two international groups from the Far East who they're, I guess, very concerned about skin. I saw a recurring theme here. So let's talk about skin for a second. One of the mistakes we make with our skin is we destroy the natural ability of skin to protect itself. When you use a harsh cleanser, you strip away a very thin, cellophane-like covering over your skin. This acid mantle that's supposed to naturally be there to protect the skin. So using harsh cleansers, frankly, just using regular soap usually is too much. It takes away that natural protection. So the question is, what's the normal skin routine and how can you augment it? Remember, the reason we value beauty so much is it's a barometer of inner health. Otherwise, we wouldn't care about it that much. And the most important gauge of beauty, if I were to go through this entire audience and ask you, is this person beautiful or not? We have subtle differences in what eye color we like and how wide our nose should be and what our lips look like. But the number one way we evaluate beauty is the quality of the skin. So if our skin quality is high, we interpret the person as being beautiful. So inner health allows that to exude forward. The most common deficits we see with skin that's not what it should be is biotin deficiency, which is why I love eggs. And don't ever have egg whites again. They're a waste of time. Eat the egg with the yolk. They're a waste of time. You know, it was a misplaced belief that cholesterol in your diet matters to the cholesterol in your body. It's probably important for maybe 5% of people who have genetic issues. The vast majority of us don't have a problem with that. Our elevated cholesterol comes because we've got too much fat. That's what causes high cholesterol. But if you have an egg and you eat the yellow, you get the biotin that's naturally present in that. In addition to simple dietary supports like that, and in the summertime, by the way, watermelon and tomatoes are fantastic. Tomatoes have lycopene, which protects your skin against sun damage. They did a very sexy study in the UK, Great Britain. They took a bunch of women, they fed half of them a lot of tomato paste and tomatoes, the other half didn't get it. Then they stripped them naked and they exposed their rumps, their bottoms, to the sun. And the women who didn't get tomatoes had sunburned bottoms the next day, which is actually how the study was done. I did it with the BBC a couple of years ago for a show. So we know that food plays an important role. In addition to the cleansing process you use, I don't think you should ever really use soap unless you're taking something off. If you're working under a car, yes, you gotta wash it off, but most of us don't need that. So if anything, a very gentle cleanser, nothing, always you have to moisturize. Sunblock you know about, but the antioxidant creams many people use in the morning, well, the sun hits those creams and destroys the antioxidants. So make sure the antioxidant creams you use are used in the evening, not the morning. That way they can bathe your face overnight. And finally, for children, which was part of the second question, I've had huge success with omega-3 fatty acids. We give them to our pets to help the fur. It also helps the skin by providing some more of those flexible lipids that allows the skin to become resilient and deal with some of the crises that sometimes happens in the face of children. And I don't know, no one does, specifically the role of nutrition and acne, but we know that in Papua New Guinea, a place where they eat what only humans could eat 1,000 or 10,000 years ago, they don't have any acne. I'm told anyway. So I think food does make a difference.
Thank you very much. Get those kids on Biomega Junior early. You need those omega-3s. You have one more question?
Let's take one more.
Hey, Dr. Oz, it's Isabel. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and my question is, there's so many people in my life that don't have the best health, and I'm wondering, what do you think I can do to help them realize that it doesn't have to be that way, that they can actually be super healthy?
Now, Dr. Oz, this is an important question for us. These people care. How? These people care. They've invested, they've traveled here, they want to learn more. How do they get other people to care? Much like you do on your show. Would you please take some time to teach them how to help change the world?
This is a topic that I'm passionate about. Dave, thank you for having me on the set. I'm going to spend a little time talking about this issue with you. I'm going to break it down to several topics. And I do think if you're going to get a piece of paper and a pen out, this is not a bad time to do it. Because I'm going to go through a couple of slides that I prepared. At its very core, what we face in the world is a lot of people who are in the pre-contemplative phase. Let me explain what that means. Historically, when we thought about psychology, we thought about Sigmund Freud, right? We thought about hating our mothers, or being told we should hate our mothers, right? All of these psychological dogma came down to us, but it didn't really address what we had to have as healers. And everyone in this room, because you're in this room, you're a healer. You have the power to make change. But how do you convey that visceral need to make a change to people that you care for? So the psychology of change is not what Freud taught more than 100 years ago. It's based on a much newer science, but it has been looked at. And I'm working meticulously with a bunch of folks on this very issue. You know, we have a website, that DrOz.com, that has a lot of traffic. We get about 100 million page views a month from different people on different family of websites we have, and we always focus on this issue. So what does the psychology of change say? It says most of us focus our attention on people who are in the phase of change. They already want to make a difference. Because you're here, all of you are in that group. However, only about 10 to 15% of people are actually changing meaningfully in their life. Most people are in the pre-contemplative spot. What that means is they're not even thinking about changing. Then you have some people who are thinking about changing, but they're not ready to do it yet. So how do you move people who are not yet thinking about change into the place where they're going to actually begin to think of changing and transforming their lives for the better? And let me speak, if I can, to that reality, because that's what I face every day on the show. Because when a couple million people turn the television channel, I've got to get more than new normal to think, you know what, today I'm going to change. Today it's going to happen. So how do I tell that story? Well, you tell a story by creating emotions. So let me put up some images. It all starts when you're a child, right? Children have passion, they have love, they have things they want to do. They experience things for the first time. And because they're ready and open to have experiences, they're much more willing to change. Part of the reason advertisers go after children is because they know children take information and translate it to action much more aggressively, much more rapidly. So what are the characteristics of a child? Well, they're passionate. I'll never forget the last day that I was on the Oprah show, and I did over 80 shows with her. The last day, I got some very important advice from a member of her team. She said, listen, describe how people who love you think about you. However you describe that, that's who you need to be, because that's how people truly see you. I ask each of you to do that. Think about what people in your life would use to describe you. What word would come to their mind, to your mother's mind, to your sibling's mind, a child, a friend? What word would they use to describe you? The word that all my friends use for me is passion. That's the word that I've always felt was most important to me. So when I try to tell the story of change, I use passion. It's a little bit of a child image in my mind, but you want to have a little bit of that youthful enthusiasm and a little naivete, because people, I think, crave that from the people in their lives. You also want a little innocence. And innocence is not about being foolish, it's about being respectful to the reality that people have had different life experiences from us. And they haven't always had easy ones. And the barriers that they build for themselves are ones that you have to help them get through, even if they can't see what they are. And remember, the cobwebs, the very thin cobwebs that sometimes catch us, well, they become cables over time if we don't work hard to free ourselves from them. So innocence becomes a very valuable attribute as you tell the story. Here's some simple stuff. It worked for me, it worked for them, it could work for you, I care about you. And that's one of the reasons that when I talk to cigarette smokers, I never chastise them, never get mad at them for smoking, because they know it's not good for them. What I tell them, very innocently, is I care for you. It matters to me how you do. All I want you to do is care for yourself as much as I do. And once you realize that people around you care about you, if you're a smoker, you stop beating yourself up for smoking, because nobody who smokes wants to smoke. People are overweight, they don't want to be overweight. People who don't feel good in life, they don't want to feel that way. Most of the people in your life are not living life at 100th percentile of who they are. Most people are living life at 30th, 40th, 50th percentile of who they could be. And you want to get them to realize that and move up. You also need connection. It is the single most important emotion I think humans crave. Listen, our prefrontal cortex, this big part of our brain, we didn't need to develop that to catch animals. Reptiles catch prey, and they have small little brains. Our brains grew the size they are because we had to connect with each other. We had to empathize, see others' emotions, respect and respond to them. We had to be able to look in each other's eyes and realize that we matter to them and they matter to us. That's what true connection really is. And when you begin to appreciate that in the person that you're talking to, they will as well. And then you take advantage of this gargantuan organ in the brain that's really there for this very purpose. And yet we ignore it. If you ask yourself, what's the thing I want most in life? It's connection. We call it love. You know, we have other phrases for it, but hormonally we're driven to seek it, and when we don't find connection, we sense emptiness. That's actually one of the big reasons we have obesity around the world. People feel an emptiness because they're not connecting. They try to fill that emptiness with the only thing they can fill it with, which is the spoon at the end of their hand. And then they're looking for love in all the wrong places, and it just fill their bodies up with things besides what they're really seeking, which is this connection. And they're looking for beauty. Now, I mentioned earlier that beauty is something that, although we may perceive it as skin deep, we actually sense it as important because it reveals much deeper realities, our inner health. That's why we look for symmetry, the golden ratio, which I hope you know. If you don't, please look up a little bit. The golden ratio defines all the numbers, the important numbers that reveal how biologic processes work. That's why petals have the right number on a flower to make it look attractive to us. The distance between your eyes, the width of your mouth compared to your nose. These are all determined by this golden ratio. We see it, but why is it important? It's not important because it's beautiful. It's important because it meant that your body was reproducing correctly when you were being made, which subconsciously sends a message that other parts of your body are working correctly as well. The reproductive system, your brain, your physical activity, all that stuff seems to fit as well. So we look for it. So these become important factors. And simple little changes, like the nutrients that go into your body, tip enzymes, tip genes in the right direction so that you actually begin to experience this outer beauty. But we're imperfect. These are both me. I bet you wouldn't be much different. Now look at it carefully. The left picture is 2 parts of my left face. They took my left face and they flipped it over. The right picture is my right head flipped over. So if I only had half of me doubled, that's what I would look like. It actually is a more attractive image, in theory, either one, than what I look like. And all of us are like that. We're all imperfect. So how do you marry desire perfection to the reality that we are imperfect? And this is where the rubber hits the road. So we have to figure out what tips, what tools will allow us to make that marriage between imperfection. Because you know what? We all want to be different, but we all want to be part of a community, right? We all want to be special, but be part of the team. And these are not desires that marry well. Well, here are the excuses that I hear on the show. You probably hear them when you're talking to different colleagues. We don't have enough time. I don't have the money it takes to do that. I don't know how to do that. And of course, most importantly, fear of change. And why do people fear change? Because they fear failure. Because when you try to change and you fail, then you think people won't love you anymore. And when you don't feel loved, that's spiritual death. So that's why this cascade goes on. And I challenge you, as straightforward as I'm saying this is what's going on emotionally, psychologically, in so many of the people that you're dealing with. So here's an example I'm going to show you from a show clip. This is a person who actually made me feel like screaming for a while. But as I began to understand him better, I began to appreciate that he is a magical combination, truly magical combination of perfection, incredibly brilliant person, with an incredibly flawed ability to cope with the world around him. And just take a look.
I think it's good, all knowledge is good, right? Knowledge is good, but again, since we're being honest, I would at least in some part of my soul, if I were you, be thinking, these kids are they're going to want to